Greetings. I am Tom Earl. Welcome to the celebration. We know you could be anywhere, and you have chosen to intentionally be here with us today. And for that, we are grateful. You are valued, you are loved, and you are appreciated exactly as you are and have always been and will always be. As you can see, I am not alone. I have an amazing return guest. He goes by the name of Walter Wally B. Jennings, back on the stage. Team piece with Tom Earl here too. How are you, Wally?
And I'm doing great, doing excellent now that I'm here with you. I'm doing excellent. Thanks again for the opportunity and glad to share space and time with you again.
Of course. I'm trying to think when our first one of these was. It was probably 2017.
Jeez, man, 5 years, just 6 years, just like that.
I know. Feels like I don't even know where 2017 is. It feels like I couldn't even reach it if I wanted to try. Feels like a lifetime ago.
Mm-hmm.
Someone else's lifetime. So is there anything you want to share as a broad zoomed out who's Wally, what's going on in Wally's world? And it doesn't have to be, I do this, I do that. Anything you want to share that comes to mind of how you want to tell the folks who haven't listened to the three other podcasts we did together about who you are.
Sure. So yeah, my name is Walter Wally B. Jennings. I am a man of many passions and I would say abilities and ministries based out of and from Tampa, Florida, my home, my love, and my base. And I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a man of God, I'm a poet, I am a advocate and activist, I am a host, a plethora of different things. And so, yeah, and part of my passion, what I will say is that part of my life's work and my passion is to help people walk in their purpose and their calling and encouraging them in who I believe that God has created them to be. And whatever way that I've been assigned to partner with them in that, it's my honor to do so.
I love that. I love that. Okay, well, why don't we wave to the good folks and go into the more relaxed camera off, get this ring light off here over as well. All right, relax into it. Why don't you, if you don't mind, pick one of those words that you named and let's peel the onion on it. Person of God, activist, poet, host. Is there any of those that kind of jump out to you that you want to add some peel the onions about?
Probably poet or artist
Okay, let's do it.
Would be one. And part of the reason why I would start there is because in the previous times that you and I have spoken, it was really with that as kind of the lead of artistry. And it's so funny because every time we talk, there's always some type of project. There's always something different that is happening. And so it has been really fascinating. Like, even as we have these conversations, sitting down and thinking like, okay, where am I at now? Not just in life, but specifically in artistry. And so I've been fortunate as a spoken word artist to perform all over the nation, to really build relationships with artists all over the nation, to work with young people, and to provide a platform and a space for them to not only be able to perform, but to take them to international poetry festivals like Brave New Voices, to start adult poetry venues that help to provide a space for adults to find and embrace their voice. And now for me, artistry has shifted into more of a collaboration with other art. When we talk about visual art, my wife and I, we actually got a chance to launch during the pandemic an initiative called Mouth of the Mural, where we actually were able to highlight different murals all over the city. And so we turned it into a digital series, which was amazing. And so there was this fusion of performance art and visual art, and allowing visual artists to actually have a voice. And many visual artists, they're not necessarily big talkers. That's one of the things that we saw. But when you get them to talking about their actual work, they have a lot to say. And so it was really fascinating getting to know artists in that way. And then also over the past 2 years, I've had the privilege of working with the Black Cemetery Network and the African American Burial Project regarding many of the Black and African American cemeteries here in the Tampa Bay area that have been disregarded, that have been abandoned, that have been built over. And so providing voice to individuals who are actually no longer with us. And so very, very powerful project that has actually turned into a nationwide initiative where we actually are developing a model for other cities to not only have this data regarding the Black cemeteries in their community, but again, partnering with artists and helping to tell some of the stories of those cemeteries and the families and the individuals that have been impacted by the displacement and the abandonment of them. So it's really been a fascinating journey into really seeing where poetry has kind of taken me, as it relates to a long way from the open mics and the poetry slams, and as you mentioned, the team pieces, to more of this granular work of what art can look like on an everyday basis and really have an impact in some of the challenges and issues that we face in our world.
Wow. Do you mind talking about the burial project? Can you kind of, is there anything that comes to mind on that for you? That sounds just powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, here in the Tampa Bay area, there were a number of Black cemeteries that began to be uncovered and unearthed. One of them specifically was located at a very popular large housing project. Another one was actually on a high school campus. And then another one was near the Air Force Base that's here. And so as these cemeteries begin to be uncovered, we were having conversations as far as in the artistic community of, hey, what is our role? Like, what do we do about this? Like, this is a milestone. This is a really big deal. And this is historic. And so how do we chronicleize and capture this moment? While this is happening, an anthropologist, professor at the University of South Florida by the name of Antoinette Jackson, this is a part of her work that she's been doing for a number of years. And so she actually put together a proposal for what is now known as the African American Burial Project, to actually look at and target 3 specific cemeteries, one here in Tampa and then 2 over in St. Petersburg, to really do more highlighting and emphasis and provide more information on the individuals that were buried there, what happened that they were displaced or built over and abandoned, what is the condition of them now, and then how do we move forward. And I actually was working at the University of South Florida, and as I saw her getting this grant, I reached out to her on behalf of the artistic community here in the Tampa Bay area and proposed to her that, hey, I'm a part of the artistic community. We've been having this conversation regarding the cemeteries, and wanting to know if we would be interested in partnering with us providing an artistic interpretation of some of the data and information that you all would be getting on those cemeteries. And she was absolutely elated and really excited about it. And so we have been fortunate to partner with her from day one, which was September of 2021. No, September of 2020. I apologize. And so this coming next month, September, will be 3 years that we've been working with her on this project. And so a number of artists here have written poems that have been inspired by the cemetery or the individuals that have been buried there. We've also done public presentations to really raise awareness about this issue, and where we've had not only these anthropologists and professors to present this information, but also artists to perform their poems as well. So it really creates this holistic, comprehensive, encapsulating experience for the individuals that are listening. And ironically, right? So we talk about during these presentations, the reason why we're doing it is to raise awareness so that it does not happen. So these things do not happen again. And so what happens a few months ago, a cemetery here, well-known, prominent cemetery, ends up being lost by the city who had ownership. It went to auction and the city lost it. Somebody purchased it. And so the city ended up having to buy it back. And part of that was because of the attention, again, that we have been raising to this issue. And so we actually are going to be doing another public presentation about these cemeteries on the site of that particular cemetery. And the city is going to present about the importance of why they wanted to make sure that they retain ownership of it. So again, as I mentioned earlier, it's a perfect example, again, of this is where artistry meets activism. This is what I believe is one of the important parts of our work, of it having tangible results and real work and making a difference and an impact in our communities.
Oh my God. So some developer was just gonna build on top of the cemetery again?
We don't, that's the thing. Yeah, that's the
their
thing.
plan?
Well, that's the thing. We don't know. We don't know we don't know what their plan was. The individual that purchased it, they said that they did not know that it was a cemetery. So I find that hard to believe that you would invest that amount of money into a site unseen and not investigate exactly what it is. But the bottom line is, again, we do not know. But in this day and age, the bottom line is we have to be vigilant in protecting the things that mean something to us. And when we do not, that sends a message about its value to us or the individuals that are impacted by it. I think it sends a message to those individuals. And so I think we have to be very careful about, again, making sure that our words are in alignment with our actions. We can't say one thing and do another. And so, yeah, we don't know what the plan was, but we do definitely commend the city for making sure that they procured and were able to reacquire that land back. And so, again, part of this presentation, again, is to really raise awareness that these things are still happening now. And again, we must be persistent in ensuring that we're guarding and protecting our past, so that our children and our grandchildren, so that they can have a really good, firm foundation as they build forward towards their future.
Are there any little vignettes or stories from any of the buried spots or graves that were in the 3 locations that you mentioned in St. Peter, Tampa, that come to mind that you kind of exemplifies the story or can kind of give us an insight? Is there anything like that comes to mind, or is it kind of too big to narrow down like that?
Man, it's heartbreaking to even talk about, because as I mentioned, one of the burial grounds lies underneath one of the city's largest housing projects. And so, first of all, to have a living community of often underrepresented, marginalized, and disenfranchised people living on top of a cemetery, just the symbolism of that, the representation of what that means is so harrowing. There is a gate there that once these graves were discovered and they were able to actually find the records, the names of the individuals that they have been able to identify are listed on this kind of fence screening. So you can literally go there and read the names of the individuals that were buried at this cemetery where again there now sits a housing project. And some of them are babies who weren't given a name. And so being able to see that in real time is it's a very emotional thing. So even as you asked the question, it's really tough when you think about it in real time. And I believe it's an opportunity that you can maximize when you practice empathy. When you think of some of the individuals that you love that have passed on, and imagine individuals living on top of their grave, or imagine the grave of your loved one being paved over for a sports team's parking facility, which is the case of two of the cemeteries over in St. Petersburg. It is one of those things that, again, as we read history books, we read about stuff like this and we're appalled by it. And everybody's up in arms and everybody is, we would never allow that to happen. And how could they allow that to happen back then? And it's happening today. And part of the reason, again, why we're able to sometimes overlook those things is because of our convenience, because of our apathy and our inability to really put into context and really allow ourselves to think beyond just our comfort, to really make sure that we're focused on what's prudent and what's righteous, like what's the right thing, to do in this situation. And so, it's a very humbling, heartbreaking thing.
Do you mind if I ask more questions, or is this in terms of, because it is very painful, so I'd want to honor if you also want to move on to a different subject.
No, go right ahead. No, absolutely.
Do you know about what year a lot of the folks who are buried there were born in? Do you know, like, or what century? Like, are we talking this century? Are we talking 1800s, 1900s? Like, what do you know about when the folks were born who are buried there?
So these cemeteries, the majority of them were established in the early 1900s and were abandoned and displaced roughly around 40 maybe 50 years later. And so, it was during the 19th century. And so many of these individuals were born in the late 1800s or the early 1900s. And it's so this is, so, we're not talking about 100, 200 years ago. We're talking about, 60, 70, 80, recent times. So again, that's part of that's part of the painfulness of it, is that this is not, these are our ancestors in name, but not our ancestors in contemporary terms, the way that we oftentimes think of ancestors. These are individuals where we're maybe one or two generations removed, like not far at all. So for a lot of these individuals, these are like their grandmothers or their great grandmothers or their great grandparents that are buried in these plots.
And I one of the things I was kind of reaching for is, it sounds like a lot of these folks maybe were born when slavery was legal.
Exactly. When slavery was legal, or just coming out of that whole Reconstruction.
Mm.
Yeah, the whole Reconstruction era. Where it was, and then as you move into more of the industrial age, where again, big business, building, construction became more again of a priority over what again may have been in the best interest of humanity in the world is, was more of a priority, and set precedents. Where now, even as we see more of like a green, the green movement and a consideration for the earth, it really set the stage and the atmosphere for the unearthing of these cemeteries. Where we had gotten so far ahead on building that we didn't take the time to really think about and really do our due diligence on what we are building on, and really scrutinizing the foundation of many of these things. And so, I think, the lesson there in morals, I think, again, the challenge for us, especially for individuals like you and I, who are fathers and men of today, and then what that model looks like, as far as with, okay, all right, I know we've got to advance forward. I know we got to innovate. I know that we have to, really be progressive, but let's stop and make sure that we are not only building the right thing, but we're building on the right things, that we're taking the time to really investigate and clear the ground. And again, I mean that both figuratively, but I also mean that in actual terms as well.
Ah, it sometimes feels like a Pandora's box when you ask the question of our culture and history and society, of the disregard for Black life and its permeation in everything, including even after death.
Mm.
It feels endless, that you just have to ask somebody, how are you? And, well, let me tell you about this. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're just kind of kicking off this 4-part episode. And how do you, in an emotional place, and how it sits in your body, in your mind, as a father, as a partner, as an individual, how does all of this sit within you?
It is it's trivial in a lot of ways, because on one hand, I am truly honored and humbled to be a part of something as historic as this, because, and I say it from that standpoint of, thank God it happened, you know? Um, and not that I'm happy that it happened at all, but I'm just glad again that they were found, that they were discovered, that they were unearthed, and to be a part of making sure that we can document these individuals and chronicleize this experience is very humbling. But on the other side, it's discouraging. I'm an eternal optimist. I'm a hopeless romantic. I'm one of those people that as a Black man, I always hold out hope that appealing to the humanity, and in a lot of ways the divinity of people, that love will ultimately shine through, that prudence and righteousness and love will ultimately win out, that eventually it'll get to a place that, you know what, hey, we've gone too far, like this is, that there has to be an end to some of the things that have been perpetuated against us, that it doesn't have to come to certain means in order for us to pursue equity and understand that that's in the best interest of all of us. And the heartbreaking thing is, the older I get, the harder it is to accept that. I don't know if that's I don't know if that's going to happen. I mean, and again, I'm a man of faith as well, and so this speaks to the spiritual aspect. I am required by my faith and by my spirituality to hold firm to faith, to hold firm, to hold fast, to hope, absolutely. But situations like this, man, in conjunction with what we see in our day and age, with police brutality, with homelessness, with school shootings, I grieve. I grieve for my children. I grieve for my grandchildren. I grieve for the world ahead. So yeah, it's trivial. It's hard to reconcile, but in the words of the great Denez Smith, hope is hard, but I have it. And so that's kind of where I have to live.
It brings to mind for me that to use the shared language with you of faith feels like it's a paradox, It feels like we're speeding up the car into a brick wall and at the same time trusting that there is a timeline that is bigger than my ability to comprehend, right? That there is meaning in the brutality and disregard that seems to be permeating every corner of the earth. But to hold that and acknowledge it and not be in denial, head in the sand, to hold that as a reality, and then to hold I trust in that there's something bigger than me that cares, that is loving, that like these kind of positive things that I've found more as I kind of, especially the word grief, as I grapple with grief, that it's a lot of it is holding what feels like two opposing truths in your mind at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, we are at the half-hour mark. That's a nice.
I don't know if we can. I don't know if we can. Man,
this was as I was approaching this year. I've been doing this podcast since 2016, and trying to manage my energy as my grief has taken up a lot of my time. And one of the things with the podcast was like, when you and I get together, we're going to talk for 2 hours. Mm-hmm. And do I put that out as one episode? I was like, I can't do that. So we're going to talk for 2 hours, where we're going to split it into 4.
Yep. That's wise. That's wisdom.
And yet on this one, it does feel like an abrupt ending for the folks who are going to wait till next week. So what do you think is an appropriate way to not close this conversation, but for the folks who are listening, what do you think is a way to transition towards a pause? What's coming up for you, and what might feel an appropriate temporary closing? Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah. So for everyone listening, one of the things that I will say that's been big for me over the past few years is this idea of advocacy on all levels. And what that means is that everyone can do something. So if you're listening to this, don't allow yourself to become distracted and discouraged by what you see someone else doing and thinking to yourself, man, I can't do that. That this person is doing great things. This person's a great speaker. This person is, a strong leader. This person is doing this. This person is doing that. Focus on what it is that you can do. Reach where you are. Do what you can. Get active, whatever it is. whatever fighting injustice looks like, whatever for you, again, whatever fighting injustice looks like for you, whatever is in front of you, as far as when you see a need, whatever humanity and being humane looks like, please do that. Please. You know, it is imperative for all of us, you know, to recognize that we're all activists. We have to be. Like we're all activists. It's not just the people you see on your TV screen or even with Tom and I, like, you know, with this podcast. Like, no, you're an activist. That means you're active. You're actively doing something, you know, so recognize that, walk in it. And if you're inspired, absolutely get involved. As I mentioned, we have started this program. And as a matter of fact, I mentioned the African American Cemetery Project, which was a local project, has grown into the Black Cemetery Network with the website blackcemeterynetwork.org. You can go on there and they actually have different Black cemeteries that they have rediscovered all over the nation. And again, it's one of the things that we're proud of, but that's also unfortunate that every time a cemetery is discovered, a dot pops up on our map on our website. So see if your city is represented. Get involved. Tell those stories. Advocate for others, and get active.
That's wonderful. Our official closing ritual is to share with people an invitation. And I like how we're kind of intuitive. I was like, how do you think we should close? And that to me felt like an invitation. So I think we're aligned. My invitation, there was something right at the end that you said, storytelling. I invite you to reflect through the stories that are running in the background of your conscious and even harder subconscious that are steering us into the brick wall. I think that's a big stepping stone, is to recognize these stories that are running our lives that allow us to, we can look at someone and say, how could you see there's a cemetery? Buy it, knowing you're going to build over it. And reflecting in our own lives the way, not something that big, but that we are dimming the light of someone else's life in small ways. And then owning and reflecting your story, sharing the story and the stories of yourself and your life, continuing that oral tradition and whatever it looks like to shine your light. And I think that helps other people become aware of stories that are running in their mind. It brings out the implicit bias, in other words. I think a lot of times when we share our stories, at least for me, it's been, I listen through and I go, oh, that has highlighted a story that socialization has fed me that I need to let go of. So I think it's that push and pull, the within myself and then sharing. Okay, Wally, we are going to step into now, it might feel a little jarring, but we're going to step into quickly shameless self-promotion. So where can the good folks out there reach out to you, support you, share their thoughts, questions? Where can they do that?
Sure. So you can visit me at www.walterwallybjennings.com. I do have my own website. You can also visit me and follow me on Instagram at Wally B Jennings and on Facebook at Walter Wally B Jennings as well.
All right. We'll link that for y'all too. And for me, we love to bring together people to express and reflect through process-oriented journaling and dialogue. If that sounds like something you want to give a shot at, you're welcome to join one of our pop-up workshops, tomearl.me/DCM invite, direct connect method invite, DCM invite. Okay, we will see you all next week where we're going to pick up right where we started and venture into the unknown of conversation once again. Wally, I want to thank you so much for being a part of episode 1.
Thank you as always, Tom. I appreciate you.
Of course. And to all those who are listening, we're wishing you peace and blessings. Thank you.
One more thing. I'd love to continue the conversation. Feel free to join me at tomearl.com/join. Subscribe below, or let's connect on social media. Tom Earl Artist. Thanks again for watching.